Andrew, one of the texts our learners have been looking at is Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy, which was written in the 1600s. And it's fascinating to me because it seems to me just so contemporary with what we think of as heartbreak. He called it love melancholy, love sickness, and Shakespeare very much picks up on love sickness, love melancholy. So I just wondered if I could pop this down for a minute, but read some of the symptoms from love melancholy and just ask you as a doctor whether this is something that resonates. So symptoms are either of body or mind. Of body, paleness, leanness, dryness. As the poet describes lovers, love causes leanness, hollow-eyed, their eyes are hidden in their head, they pine away, they look ill with waking cares, sighs, want of appetite, and so on. I mean, does this sort of resonate at all?
I think it does resonate tremendously, and as you say, contemporaneously, this could be written by someone nowadays. And in a way, why shouldn't it be? Because we're no different from our forebears.
No, we're human beings.
Yeah.
And actually looking at this reminds me of one of our other key texts for this week, which is Sense and Sensibility. Because again, reading that they're Marianne's symptoms. She's hollow-eyed, she sleeps all the time, she sighs, she doesn't eat. So, I mean, it seems to me that, again, even Jane Austen's picking up on the same. Actually, we're human beings. These things don't really change.
And you know, we've all felt this. We've all felt this, haven't we?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I love melancholy. It's an amazing phrase, isn't it? We say heartbreak, they say love melancholy.
They're wonderful metaphors for something we can't name, we can't put your finger on.
Talk to me about broken heart syndrome. Can people die of a broken heart?
I think they can, and I think we've always known that. As a GP, we find there are couples who've been married for decades and decades, and the one, often it's the one who's not ill who dies first, but either way, the one who dies first and the one who's left behind, you suspect they're going to live for a long time afterwards, and something happens. The phrase we often use is turning their face to the wall. They just turn their face to the wall, and then they can pine away. They can die within days sometimes of their life partner dying. And it almost seems as if they're withering on a vine. They're part of the same tree. I know Louis de Bernier talks about love being becoming part of one tree, not two. And there's something about the death of one leading to the death of the other, almost and sort of beautifully passing away, and then another passing away. And I've got a poem that I think beautifully illustrates, and I often think of this poem when one finds a patient's widow or widower has died. Poem written by Henry Wotton in the early 1600s. The title is Upon the Death of Sir Albert Moreton's Wife. So it's wonderfully deadpan, you know, what's going to... And it's quite a long poem, beautifully written, this extraordinary marriage, extraordinary union. And the closing couplet, I think, is wonderful and want to be memorable. And I think one of the things I love about poetry is the fact that it lodges in one's head, it stays there in its entirety. He first deceased, she for a little tried to live without him, liked it not, and died.
Oh my God.
And the wonderful phrasing and the falling away at the end.
Could you read it again for me?
He first deceased, she for a little tried to live without him, liked it not, and died.
That encapsulates beautifully what you talked about when you talked about turn your face to the wall. You just give up, liked it not.
Tried and said, it's not for me, I don't want this anymore.
And that resonates today. I think that resonates with so many people and would. I mean, it's universal, it's timeless.
It's timeless.
It speaks to everybody, doesn't it? It's so simple as well. It's very simply, beautifully put. That's a wonderful, wonderful poem. What I'm interested in as well is do we associate broken heart syndrome with the elderly then? Are you saying it's more common in people who typically have lived together for 50 years, one loses one? Or do we ever see it? I'm fascinated because one of our key texts is Sense and Sensibility, and it's about the way in which two sisters are heartbroken, they've lost all hope, one behaves in a particular way and the other sister behaves in another way. But they're very young, and I feel like sometimes we think people should get over heartache and get over heartbreak and it's part of life. But I'm sort of intrigued as to what that means. So, you know, this is why I come at this question, can you die of it? I mean, Can a young person die of broken heart syndrome?
I think they can. I think it's unusual, and I think resilience, the human nature gives a certain resilience. There's something about either later in life when it becomes frailer. There's a condition called broken heart syndrome, or Takotsubo syndrome, only described in the last 20 years, 25 years. And we've now got a possible mechanism for literally broken heart syndrome where this surge of adrenaline can actually paralyze part of the heart. It's the left ventricle, the part of the heart that pumps all the oxygenated blood around the body. It paralyzes it and it can balloon up. And in ballooning up, the heart temporarily stops working. Usually that gets working again, starts working, and the patient's fine. But while it's doing that, it mimics a heart attack. So we, the doctor, think this person's having a heart attack, rush him to hospital. But you don't find the usual blocked coronary arteries that you'd find in a heart attack. But you do see this ballooned left ventricle. And the Japanese first discovered this, and they looked at X-rays and ultrasound images of the left ventricle ballooned up like an octopus trap. And their word for these little fishing pots they catch octopuses is a Takotsubo, T-A-K-O, and then T-S-U-B-O.
That is fascinating. And people do recover from Takotsubo then?
Usually do recover from that. Most do. What's interesting is it seems to have a female preponderance. Probably, we think, we don't know for sure, to do with lack of estrogen postmenopausally. So the common age is, I think, 58 to 75. So it's later in life, but it's predominantly in women. Most recover, and most recover completely. But a very small number, again, we don't know why, but a very small number could have, it can stop the heart pumping completely, it could rupture the heart, it could cause an arrhythmia, which means the rhythm just goes completely haywire, and that could stun the heart and cause a heart attack or even a cardiac arrest.
So one of our contributors, who's a poet, had a broken heart, and he said the thing that absolutely got him through was reading Philip Sidney's poems. Have you ever prescribed poems or poetry to people who you felt were stressed or heartbroken?
I have. I think as a general rule, I try and prescribe self-prescriptions, so getting literature as a currency so we can talk about it, see what they've read, see the sorts of things. I think it's one can't just say, here, read this. but if you know the sort of things they read, knowing a patient as we do as a general practitioner, we have this continuity, so we get to know some people very well and see them through the worst times. You get to know what might be helpful. One very useful tool is an anthology, because it gives them a chance to choose what they want. I think agency and choice is very important. So Sylvia Plath Beljar might be life-changing to someone and actually very unhelpful and possibly destructive to another. So you've got to gauge very carefully by offering them the possibilities. So there was a situation where I did recommend a poem when one of my patients was completely heartbroken over her husband's death, and he was very young. They were both in their, I think, 30s, early 40s at most. He had this terrible cancer, and he had the tumour growing out of his head. It was just appalling. He got very aggressive at the end. It's not him at all, but the cancer and the illness made him aggressive, hard to treat, hard to live with, I imagine. And then he died. And I remember thinking about all this bustle and this difficultness and this awfulness, and then the calm and the sweeping up afterwards and everything being calm again. And I thought of this poem so much, I gave it to his widow, who I knew very well. And I'll just read it. It's an Emily Dickinson poem. The bustle in a house the morning after death is solemnest of industries enacted upon earth. The sweeping up the heart and putting love away we shall not want to use again until eternity.
That's incredible. It's brilliant.
I didn't talk to her directly, nor should I have. I think it's too crass to say, "What did that help?" or something. One doesn't know, and she's entitled to. And I think I gave it in the spirit of, look, this might help. If it doesn't,
discard it. It doesn't
discard
matter.
it. I often say, scrap paper to other people. But I think people do with it what they want. It could become an extraordinarily prized bit of paper they could keep for decades afterwards, or it could just be discarded, or it could be remembered. There's a variety of things they can do. But I think the important thing is they choose to do with it what they will.